In front of me I have the brand new Xiaomi 12X, and today I'll go over unboxing along with a quick overview of this phone. So anyway, let's just pop it straight open. Okay, so there's our device. Let's just unseal this, but before I actually go with this, I'll just quickly touch upon a couple things I can see right here. So we have a 50 megapixel pro-grade main camera. I actually like the fact that they added just a single word as a main camera, because in certain cases phones decide to say 50 megapixel cameras as in a multiple when it's just a single one. So I like the honesty right here. It goes far away. Ultra wide and a telephoto or telemacro lens. Okay, and we have 120 Hz AMOLED display. We have a Snapdragon 870 and 67 watt charger, which you can see 67 watts. So all these are actually a fairly nice specs on the device. Let's just pop it open now. And there we go. Now I have to say I'm really liking this device. So this is a 6.28 inch display, 1080p by 2400, like I mentioned before, AMOLED with 120 Hz refresh rate. It has HDR10 Plus certification and also peaks at 1100 nits, so it can get really bright. Now, apart from that, we have an 89.2% screen to body ratio with 419 pixels per inch. So all that is actually fairly nice and impressive, especially for the price that it comes at, which is about 600 euros or 700 actually. So yeah, about 700 euros. To be fair, this is closer to a flagship price, and we don't have like the best Snapdragon. This is the 870 instead of like the 888 or what is it, 800 or Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 right now, or Gen 2. So those would be the best actual like options right here. But still, 870 will work really well, and if that is the reason why this phone doesn't cost $1,000, I'm all for it. And additionally, I really like the actual form factor of this device. It is a on the smaller side. It only has a 6.2 inch display, so it is way more packetable than majority of the phones, so I really appreciate that. Anyway, I'll just quickly finish up the setup so I can move over to the cameras, which I did touch upon only one at the moment. There we go, we have fingerprint and all that stuff that you'd expect, so that's great. And there we go. So if we flip it over, you can see we have a triple camera setup and a fairly interesting kind of camera bump. It doesn't look boring, or it doesn't look out of place. For instance, like the Asus Zenfone 8, which had some similar camera setup, I guess, but it was just kind of like moved a little bit too far down and it just looked completely out of place. So this one looks good. Now, this is just aesthetics, to be honest. It's not very important to some people. I do kind of care about it, that's why I'm pointing it out. Now, in terms of cameras, like I mentioned, 50 megapixel wide sensor, then we have a 13 megapixel ultra wide and 5 megapixel telephoto macro. So, honestly, I'm kind of interested about the macro or telephoto macro, just because it is only a 5 megapixel, so I'm really interested how well it does. So there we go, we can now access the camera. We do have a nice haptic feedback on here, which I just felt. Let's see. There we go. Excuse me? Oh, there we go. That's unfortunate. It took several clicks before it actually registered. Okay, so I'm actually finally impressed with a macro shot. Damn, that is good. Additionally, I don't know if you could see, but macro shot has virtually zero stabilizations, so it just kind of like wobbles. You'll probably need to keep your hand fairly stable to get the best results. But still, as you can see, this looks fantastic. Now, one of the phones that I always compare it to was my Huawei Mate 20 Pro. And just to again compare it to this, which honestly at this point, I think this might actually be better. But still, I want to compare it just so we can have a good comparison look. There we go. So here is the macro shot from Huawei. It still keeps a lot of the detail, as you can see, and the resolution of the photo is significantly higher. But as you can see, these are the same parts of it. And yeah, I think this one is a little bit clearer. And additionally, the color of it is a little bit more bright compared to this one. I think this one, if it would be brighter, would look more accurate to how I actually perceive this this cactus in reality. May not be the same case when viewing this from a camera, but this, if this would have been brighter, I think it would be more color accurate than this. This one is a little bit more washed out, but still, the overall quality right here is higher, so you can get much more detail. Now, not to say that this isn't the detail, but still, the 12X does a fairly decent job with just a 5 megapixel macro right here, which is actually done correctly, finally. Okay, so let's move on. At the front we have a 32 megapixel wide sensor, so again a fairly huge sensor right here. And anyway, with those cameras we can, at least the back ones, we can shoot at 8K 24 frames, and if you're planning to drop it down just to 4K, you can shoot at 30 and 60, which is basically what Samsung offers at their top of the line flagships. So this basically, in terms of the camera recordings, comes at around the same area. And I'm gonna test one more thing in terms of cameras, because it looks like this might be a fairly decent focus for this phone. I want to see the video stabilization for the 4K specifically, because I'm assuming that the 8K will be atrocious, but hopefully the 8K is fairly decently stabilized. So let me quickly navigate into the settings. Obviously we're going to be recording at 60, 4K, and I can already say that it is nicely stabilized. So let me quickly just kind of give a panning motion maybe. Okay, when zooming, obviously there is an option to zoom, which works really well, but it loses on that stabilization. So I believe it will crop onto it, but still, just quickly look at this just so you can see how well this looks like. So there we go. At least at 4K, it records really well. I can't really complain at all here. The video is smooth, obviously at 60 frames, doesn't chop around, which some devices do have that problem where you record and you're panning and it just kind of chops around. Looks really odd. this one did not experience this. So yeah, camera wise, here we have a fairly decent setup, I would say. Now obviously I'm not like a professional photographer or video recorder, so don't take my word on it. I would probably recommend checking out someone else in terms of like just a strict camera setup here and how well it can perform. I'm nowhere good enough to actually I think even have an opinion on this, to be honest. But for like a casual user like I am of cameras, it basically meets my expectations and what I would want my cameras to do. It looks nice, smooth, sharp, everything that I want basically. So again, really nice for a casual user like me. Now let's move on to the actual internal specs of this device. So inside of here we have, like I mentioned before, a Snapdragon 870, and we have a couple of versions of this phone. Now the one that I have right here is the 8GB RAM with 128 gigs of storage. So this is the like base model, the lowest version that I can get of this device, which also obviously means the cheapest one. But you can crank it up to 256, so you have a double the storage, still 8 gigs of RAM, and then you can crank it up with 12 gigs of RAM with only 256 gigs of storage. So you basically have like this intervals of increasing storage first, and then keeping the storage the same, increased storage, and just getting more RAM in terms of like 12 gigs instead of the 8. So still, I would say the base model with 8 gigs of RAM should be sufficient enough. Now next thing that I want to check out, and that I think might be important considering the fairly limited storage on here, which I can already see it's gonna not be the best. Yep. So we have a dual SIM tray right here, but we don't have an SD tray. So sadly, no expandable storage allowed in here, meaning that if you're planning to go for this device and 128 gigs of storage isn't enough, you will need to basically get the 256 instead, which obviously is the highest version right here in terms of storage. So that's a little bit on a low side. 256 is not much storage. That is a little bit of a shame, and I would say a negative part of this the phone. Now obviously the amount of storage will vary, or how much storage you need will vary based on a user. I believe 128 is like the minimum that you should have nowadays on the phone. 256 is I would say maybe a sweet spot, but obviously people will need more than that, and this phone will not deliver it. There is the only way you can deliver it is by just plugging external storage through a USB-C and having like just additional USB stick that you can just plug in and move the data over or read it from it, which is not the best usage, I would say, considering they could have just added more storage here, which I feel like it's a little bit of a bummer. Could have been much better here. Now in terms of the battery, this phone is on a smaller side, so we're not going to be having some massive like 10,000 battery right here, obviously. So we are rocking a 4,500 milliamp hour battery. Still, for the size of this phone, I would say this is a really decent battery, and even though it's on a smaller side, we do have a really hefty charger for it. As you can see right here, 67 watts. That is a massive charger. And charging speeds with this charger, we're looking at 100% from basically dead to fully charge in about 39 minutes. Now that is impressive. So even though we do have a kind of a crappy battery here on the smaller side, it still charges really quickly, so it shouldn't be really a problem. And obviously 4,500, I'm saying like it's small, but it's still a really decent battery size, so don't let that deter you. And we have power delivery 3, so you can power devices with it in a way through USB-C. We have quick charge 4, so that allows us to have that really quick charging. Unfortunately, we do not have any kind of wireless charging, so yeah. And I do have a charger. I'm gonna quickly just make sure. But yeah, it's not charging. Now, if it looks like I didn't try anything, I do have a charger under the desk, so I can just slap the phone on the desk a little bit to the side. When a phone has it, I do zoom out the camera, but as you can probably tell, this one does not. So I didn't really bother zooming out to showcase nothing in a way. So yeah, that would conclude basically the specs of this device. There's not much more I can say. It's running the newest Android 11, MIUI 13, so basically everything that you'd expect. Let's just quickly go into the settings, just so you can see it. About phone. So actually MIUI is 13.0.1. There is possibility that there's some update to it maybe, so it might be like 13.1 maybe, but I'm just kind of guessing, assuming I didn't connect to network nor looked for updates. And let's see, Android version, there we go. So we have Android 11, as you can see. There we go. So obviously this phone is ideal phone for everybody who's looking for a powerful phone but on a smaller form factor and wants to give up some, I guess let's call it luxuries of a premium device, just to have a much more appealing price tag for a phone that still has everything that you'd expect from it. So I'll have to say I really like this phone, though I am a little bit more biased towards it just because it might be a stupid thing, but it has a curved glass. I don't know why, but personally to me, using gesture navigation with a curved glass is the only way to go. I hate the flat screens. That is kind of one of the reasons why I'm still using a old Mate 20 Pro. It's because well, I purchased it for my own hard-earned cash. That's one, and number two, it has a curved display, which at this point delivered everything I want, and all the phones were a little bit too big for what I would want with a curved display. But it looks like now I actually have a first device to look to. Now, some people might think that I'm a Xiaomi shill. Maybe I kinda am. I like their devices. They are usually logically designed. They have some compromises that would make sense to lower down the price tag. Though I'll be completely honest, their budget brands are absolutely trash, and I would never recommend going for a budget phone, no matter what the brand. So it might be more beneficial just to go for like an older flagship, which will cost as much as like anything that Xiaomi or any other brand can deliver at budget range. But this phone is priced, I guess, more on a premium side, low, like high-end price tags. It's below 1,000, so I guess it's a flagship with a lower price tag. Though again, I can't really call this a flagship because it's missing several features like wireless charging. Though this is, I think, the only one that I found, because it does have under-display fingerprint sensor, it has decent camera setups, it has super fast charging speeds, so it delivers almost on anything else that I would think about apart from the wireless charging. And if that is the only thing that I need to give up for a small, powerful phone, hell yeah, I'm gonna do it. This phone is, in my opinion, outstanding, and that is actually something that I would be looking to pick up myself as a daily driver. That or maybe the Samsung S22, but for me, I think this is a little bit more appealing just because of that curved display. I'm simple, that's basically all I want. Samsung S22 did not have that, this one does, so it obviously jumps to spot number one for me. It's not going to be the most powerful device, obviously with that Snapdragon, but it delivers everything that I would want as a casual user. So anyway, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.